Thank you very much, Abongile. Let's chat a bit more about this. Joining me now live, Zubeida Jaffer, biographer. She's also an award-winning journalist, author and activist. The author of Beauty of the Heart, The Life and Times of Charlotte Mannya Maxeke, which draws together the different strands of this remarkable life of South Africa's first black female graduate. Ms. Jaffer, very good evening to you. Thank you very much for joining us here on the program. So, on the occasion of the 150th birthday of Charlotte Maxeke, how should we be honouring her today when, I guess, you know, there's so many different versions of her life?
Zelda, thank you for having me. I'm quite concerned that this is a moment when we should be very cautious and careful about the different versions that are floating around about Mum Charlotte's life. And I have done with a group of students a very intense, investigation. And I hope that a lot or most of what is in the book is factually correct and cross-checked. And it's very important because if we repeat inaccuracies, as I've even heard today, then we dishonor her. And so the first things we need to do is that we mustn't make up as we go along. We must at least go according to the research that has been done.
And I think, Ms. Jaffer, it's quite important. We have to understand the history and the times that she lived in order to understand the present.
That's very important, Griselda, because often we are so immersed in the present, which is important, but we need to have a historical context. And we are more of our national narrative runs with, the arrival of Jan van der Riebeeck. And every child that grows up knows that Jan van der Riebeeck came in 1652. Yeah. It's actually appalling. The man was only here for 8 years. And so we need to redefine our national narrative, and we need to place, role models like Charlotte Mannya Maxeke at the center of our public life.
And I want to talk about Mama Maxeke. She said, leaders must live with their people, not above them. When you rise, bring others with you. These are some of the lessons, in speaking to you earlier, understood that many could draw from her. How important is that in today's political life, where I think some of those sentiments that were shared certainly do ring true in the political life of South Africa today?
She lived by timeless wisdoms, and I think it's particularly important that we study that. And now, when we are going through a very difficult time, we are going through a difficult time in our country, and we are going through a difficult time in the world, where values are just being thrown out of the window. And so what Mum Charlotte was saying, and why I entitled the book Beauty of the Heart, was, besides the points that you've raised, she was saying that we have to be very, very important. We have to be very committed to dignified conduct. Dignified conduct, which means we have to, we've got to polish our hearts, each one of us, but improve all the time. And we are putting on display at the moment some of the worst kinds of behaviors. And we are expecting the next generation to learn from that. Whereas we do have gems in our presently we have gems, and in our past we have gems who have given us great examples.
Yeah. How do we rectify that then, with such great example and that not being followed? How do we rectify that, in particular for this young generation that you speak of, that is learning from what it's not supposed to learn from?
We need to speak about it. We need to put it on the national agenda. We need to say that, yes, we are very excited. We're having a birthday today. We are excited about Mum Charlotte and her contribution, but that will come to nothing if we don't study her life, we don't actually read and study her life, and we don't discuss the key elements of what drove her and her generation, her circle of friends, especially around the Kimberley area, like Sal Plaatje and others, to shift the country forward at that time. And there are timeless wisdoms. And we are so caught up in the hurly-burly that we are not putting this on the table for our families and for our children.
Will that form the crux of the event I understand that you're participating in tomorrow? Is that part of the message that you'll be driving home?
Yes, we are having a panel discussion tomorrow at 6 o'clock in partnership with The Forge in Braamfontein and Number 10 Publishers and The Forge. And we are going to look at this woman who was a woman who was ahead of her time and draw some of the lessons that we can and hopefully expand it and, drive it through the country. That's what we hope to do tomorrow. At 6 o'clock, and we hope people will listen in.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Zubeida Jaffer, a biographer. She's also an award-winning journalist, author, and activist. Thank you very much indeed for your time this evening.